Welcome to the Real Estate Espresso Podcast, your morning shot of what's new in the world of real estate investing. I'm your host, Victor Menashe. Today's another AMA episode. That is, Ask Me Anything. I love to answer your questions, and if you have a question you think is going to be of broad interest, send it in. I'll answer it live on the air. Send your questions to victor@victorjm.com. That's victor@victorjm.com. Today's question comes from Kara, and she asks, I've been approached by a borrower to lend funds to purchase a property. I'm not interested in taking risks, so I figure if I limit the loan to about 80% of the property value and secure the loan in first lien position, I'm going to be safe. I don't have the time or systems to fully qualify the borrower. The property is a fixer-upper, which will require the borrower to bring additional funds to repair the property. He intends to hold the property as a long-term rental and eventually refinance with bank financing in order to repay the initial loan. Apart from the mortgage security, what else should I be concerned with? Well, Kara, this is a great question. Number one, my recommendation is that you work with a licensed mortgage professional and a good real estate lawyer. That's their business. And for the listeners to this show, I don't want you taking what you hear on today's episode and making decisions directly. I'm not a mortgage professional, I'm not a lawyer, and I don't profess to be. I'm merely giving you ideas for you to discuss with your consultants that might give you additional protection. So here we go. A lender is only ever asking one question, and that question is, if I lend you money, how will I get it back? The more sophisticated the lender, the more ways they have of asking that exact same question. How will I get my money back if things go well? How will I get my money back if things don't go well? Whether you write one loan a year or 100, you're in the lending business. In order for you to have a robust and safe lending business, you need systems and processes in order to protect your funds. That means being very clear on your lending criteria. I'm going to touch on a couple of areas, but there's many more to be considered, and these are just for example purposes only. Again, you want to consult your real estate lawyer and your mortgage professional. So let's talk about things that can go wrong and how you need to protect yourself in the lending criteria and in the loan agreements. You can learn an awful lot about this business simply by reading commercial loan documents to see what terms another lender is embedded in their loan documents. Every single one of those terms are there for a reason. They're there to protect the lender. Okay, so what can go wrong? You're correct in saying that securing your loan on title with a mortgage does provide some protection, but it's not absolute protection. Only by understanding the weaknesses that a mortgage can have can you plug those holes that exist. So let's start with the loan amount. You mentioned you were willing to loan up to 80% loan to value. In my mind, the notion of value can be highly subjective. There have been documented cases of appraisals coming in above the true market value. Those mistakes happen, and in that case, an unsuspecting lender can be taking on much more risk without even knowing it. My recommendation is that you write your loan terms at a lower percentage, and not only that, you consider limiting the loan amount to the lower of, for example, 70% loan to purchase price or 70% loan to value. Whichever those two numbers is lower, that would be the maximum loan amount. You're still going to get the as-is appraisal for the property, and if the purchase price comes in higher than the appraised market value, you probably want to dissuade the borrower from doing the deal altogether. If they got a great deal and the purchase price came in below the appraised value, you've got additional covering equity to protect you in the event the deal goes sideways. You mentioned the property's a fixer-upper. That means there's going to be a substantial amount of work done by tradespeople, and every time you have someone working on the property, there's a risk of a mechanic's lien being recorded on title. Your mortgage might be in first position, but a mechanic's lien could come ahead of a mortgage in the hierarchy of payment in most jurisdictions. And in that situation, you want to have control of the money that's used to pay for the repairs and renovation of the property. That means the additional money that the borrower brings to the table must be placed in trust with your loan servicing agent. The money will only be released to the trades when the agreed improvements have been inspected by your team. That way you know the work's been done. Before the contractor gets paid, they also need to produce a lien waiver. But the lien waiver protects you from them putting a lien on the property. This next step is equally important. If the contractor has subcontractors, you need the lien waivers from the subcontractors as well. It's only by managing the disbursement of construction funds that you protect the integrity of that first position mortgage. And as part of that process, You need to perform a title search at each payment to ensure no liens were filed against the property before dispersing funds. The next thing you want to look at is whether to allow the borrower to attach any secondary or third mortgages to the property. Those other mortgages can represent risk to you simply because a default on a subordinate mortgage can still put the property in a toxic situation. Even with asset-based lending, there's a certain amount of due diligence that needs to be performed on the borrower. The lending business has a lot of moving parts. These are just a few, about a dozen things or more that can go wrong even in the world of secured loans. Again, I'm not a lawyer or a mortgage professional. My advice is if you're going to write even a single loan, you probably want to get into the lending business with all the systems, processes, and protections that come from being in the lending business. I want to thank you, Kara, for a great question. In the meantime, have an awesome rest of your day. Go make some great things happen. I'll talk to you again tomorrow.